He killed 3 family members, but one detail in court could have saved him from the death sentence. In the hushed intensity of a courtroom, a man faces the ultimate penalty for a crime that sent shockwaves through his community. The weight of 3 lives lost hangs heavy in the air, but justice is a complex tapestry, woven with legal precedent and the nuances of human behavior. There's a detail in this case, a subtle thread that you might have missed, that could have drastically altered the outcome. Today, we delve into the heart of this trial, exploring the factors that led to a death sentence and the legal arguments that were considered. The crime itself was brutal and senseless, leaving a family shattered and a community in mourning. The prosecution painted a clear picture of guilt, presenting evidence that left little room for doubt. But in the eyes of the law, guilt is only one part of the equation. Sentencing, especially in capital cases, involves a meticulous examination of both aggravating and mitigating circumstances. It's a process where the scales of justice must be perfectly balanced, considering not just the act itself, but the individual who committed it. The defense team, knowing the gravity of the situation, likely focused on any potential mitigating factors. These are elements that might explain the defendant's actions or lessen his culpability. Did he suffer from mental illness? Was he under duress? Were there any contributing factors in his past that shed light on his state of mind? The court had to consider all these possibilities, weighing them against the horrific nature of the crime. A key aspect of capital sentencing is the exploration of mitigating factors. These are not excuses, but rather circumstances that, in the eyes of the law, may reduce the blameworthiness of the offender. For instance, a history of severe trauma, significant mental impairment, or even the influence of an accomplice could be presented. The defense would have scoured the defendant's life for any such evidence, hoping to persuade the judge or jury that a death sentence was not the only just outcome. The prosecution, however, would have countered by emphasizing the aggravating factors. These are circumstances that make the crime more severe and deserving of the harshest punishment. The brutality of the killings, the vulnerability of the victims, and the defendant's lack of remorse could all be presented as aggravating factors. It's a constant battle of narratives, with each side trying to shape the court's perception of the defendant and his actions. Ultimately, the judge or jury must decide if the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating ones. It's a profound responsibility, determining whether a life will be taken in the name of justice. The legal system strives for fairness, but the application of the death penalty remains one of the most contentious issues in criminal justice. The question that lingers is, were all the facts truly considered, and was the sentence a reflection of absolute justice, or a product of legal interpretation? The first layer is context. Every documentary story begins before the moment people remember. There is a setting, a chain of decisions, and a public reaction that shapes how the event is understood. In the case of death sentence for triple homicide, the important thing is not only what happened, but why the surrounding details made people pay attention. That is where the story begins to move from a simple summary into something more useful. It asks us to look at timing, location, pressure, and the way one moment can represent a much larger pattern. The second layer is what people often misunderstand. A single image or short clip can feel complete, but it usually leaves out the forces around it. Viewers see the result, not the build-up. They see the most dramatic frame, not the quiet details that made it possible. That gap matters because it changes the meaning of the story. When we examine death sentence for triple homicide carefully, we are not just asking what is visible. We are asking what is missing from the first impression. Then comes the turning point. This is where the story stops being only about one scene and starts pointing to a bigger question. Why did this particular moment stand out? Why did people share it, debate it, or return to it later? The answer is usually not one simple fact. It is a combination of emotion, uncertainty, and recognition. People respond when a story feels specific, but also familiar enough to connect to something they already care about. Another important detail is the human tendency to look for a clean conclusion. We want a final answer, a clear lesson, and a single explanation that ties every loose end together. But strong documentary stories often resist that. They leave us with evidence, competing interpretations, and a reminder that public understanding is always incomplete. That does not make the story weaker. It makes it more honest. So what value can we take from death sentence for triple homicide? The value is not just the event itself. It is the pattern around it. It shows how quickly attention forms, how easily context disappears, and how important it is to ask better questions before accepting the easiest version of a story. That is why stories like this continue to matter after the first wave of attention fades. In the end, death sentence for triple homicide remains worth examining because it sits between fact and interpretation. We can see enough to understand why it matters, but not always enough to close the case completely. And that open space is where documentary storytelling becomes powerful. It does not tell us what to think. It gives us a clearer way to look. The pursuit of justice is a journey fraught with complexity, and in cases like these, the stakes couldn't be higher. The final verdict is a culmination of evidence, legal arguments, and the profound moral considerations that underpin our legal system. If you found this deep dive into the legal intricacies of capital punishment insightful, subscribe for more breakdowns of compelling courtroom dramas.